Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. It is by far my, can't say least favorite, so we'll say not the most favorite show, just because I'm bad at Dynasty, and I fear I learn something every year, and I put it into action, and yet I do something that messes up my team throughout the season. But I'm excited. We have Russ Fisher, one of the great contributors over with Fantasy Cares, joining us this week for the show with myself and Ryan. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended. Why am I by myself? Presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. No Josh this week, just Ryan and I, joined by Mr. Russ Fisher. Hello, sir. How are you?
I am fan-diddly-tastic.
Oh, I love that because what I should have just said in the intro is I hate myself because I can't figure out Dynasty Fantasy Football. And Ryan can attest, I have learned things every year I've been on this show. Something just happens to go wrong for me.
I was going to say, the team Joe is specifically speaking about, you have a stacked roster. They just don't win ever.
But the thing is, at least you know you are the problem. It's not the game. Dynasty Fantasy Football is great. It's just that it's you. It's a you problem.
Here's the thing. Rashee Rice on my team, IR, obviously, early on in the season. A rookie draft pick, Jonathan Brooks, dead. I draft well with rookies. Right? I drafted McConkey. I drafted Brock Bowers. Hopefully Rome Odunze can figure it out. I have Garrett Wilson. My team is good. They just decide to suck. At one point last year, at one point last year, Ryan had less points for than me, but was 4-1.
Yeah.
And I was 1-4. What did I do to deserve this? I don't understand, Russ. So hopefully you can help me and all the others out there maybe looking to get into Dynasty, how to play and strategize. Before we dive into that, there has been some activity in the NFL scene which could impact some Dynasty Fantasy Football here. We'll start in Dallas. I don't know if anybody's going to get Miles Sanders. Russ, where's he on your list right now? Okay, yeah, that checks out. The loaded backfield of Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, everybody. Look out. Staying in the backfield, the Chiefs re-signed Kareem Hunt because who else is going to sign Kareem Hunt?
Yeah.
So that's really it. The Seahawks signed Cooper Kupp. They keep him in the division. And I don't know if you guys have heard the nickname for him and Jackson Smith and Jigba, but 11 and 10, someone called them Blackjack, and that is an absolutely hard nickname for them.
I'm not mad at it.
So general thoughts on Cooper Kupp going to Seattle with now Sam Darnold, because no Geno Smith?
Yeah.
I would love it if it was like 4 years ago.
So that's kind of where I stand, Russ. I was a Kupp apologist towards the end of last season, and I figured he would bounce back. I don't like this, and I'm going to tell a story, and I know one of our contributors, Chris Molina, listens to this show during his Thursday workday and usually texts me when I give him a hard time. Well, Chris, I'm about to give you a hard time.
For a text.
In a dynasty, Chris put Kupp on the trading block and before the landing spot and said, I'm willing to trade him right now for a 2 before he lands anywhere. And I was like, I'm not going to give it. I thought it was too much. I wasn't going to do it. I don't think I even have a 2, but regardless. Then he lands and Chris immediately pulled him off the table. He's like, I'm not trading him now. And I'm like, really? Seattle? And he's untouchable with Sam Darnold? Like, I'm bothered by how Chris handled that situation. But to me, Russ, this kind of gets into the first kind of aspect of Dynasty to me. If that is the thought process that other Cooper Kupp managers have, or if you have Cooper Kupp, I would be looking to move him right now if this has raised his value so much that he is an untradeable asset. And in all due defense to Chris, huge Cooper Kupp fan. So I get it. But to me, this makes him far more tradable, not less tradable.
I mean, would it matter if he landed like where would he have to land for it to matter more? Like, that's the thing.
New England. New England.
Because he might be the only guy really in New England. But like, honestly, like I love this for Jackson Smith and Jigba, like who I'm a huge JSN fan, and I love that other people are going to think about Cooper Kupp as being a problem. Hopefully the NFL thinks Cooper Kupp might still be able to be a problem, so there isn't 6 defenders on JSN. You know, like
that's fair.
Like I think we all kind of saw what was going on with Cooper Kupp and just how much he was being outshined by Puka. He's going to get outshined by JSN here too. He'll be a solid wide receiver 3, most likely at worst. Like I'm sure he'll still be, you know, assuming you play in a 12 team, start maybe 10 players, Cooper Kupp will probably still make your lineup.
He was close last year, and so I'll give you, I guess for me, the next level of concern is just the step back. And obviously Matt Stafford hasn't been great, but the relationship with Matt Stafford, step back from Stafford to Sam Darnold is the cause for concern for me. But again, I do completely agree. I love what this does for Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Let's just play the game that like Kupp is like fully healthy and has like all this fun stuff, and like he's totally fine. I could guarantee you, like maybe not wide receiver 1 Cooper Kupp production, but like top 15 production. He still has Sam Darnold as his quarterback, so that I still wouldn't even put him that high because I don't know about you guys, but I'm not high on Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
because what have we seen from Kevin O'Connell quarterbacks when they're not with Kevin O'Connell?
I said it before and I'll say it again.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the theme of the show. Speaking of Kevin O'Connell quarterbacks, the Falcons paid Kirk Cousins $10 million roster bonus instead of releasing him. Why? Like, are you going to pay a backup $40 million this year?
They are. They said they were going to, and it looks like they absolutely are.
They thought he earned that in those 10 games last year.
Like, I get it. You want a veteran to mentor the young guy. Totally understand. $40 million of mentorship?
And piecing all of the articles together, and obviously he's going to say this, Cousins said he's approaching this thing like he's the starter still. Like he wants to start. So
I'm sure he wants to.
Yeah.
I'm damn well sure he wants to. I don't think
it certainly muddies the waters a bit.
Going back to the Vikings, they trade for Jordan Mason. It wasn't anything spectacular. It was like a 2026 7th.
There's a pick swapped and a 7th thrown in. So
yep.
I put this on here. I don't want to, because we're going to ask about the dynasty aspects. I'll bring this thing up a little bit later. I just want to throw that out there. So
yeah. The Texans made Derek Stingley the highest paid defensive back in the league.
Joe, I put that on there strictly for you.
Russ, do you play any IDP dynasty by chance?
I do not. My brain cannot handle that.
That'd be a lot. People. Oh, that would be a lot. I mean, IDP itself is a lot. IDP dynasty is that goes crazy. So, my quick thoughts. He is a hit or miss defensive back, but when the bar is Jalen Ramsey as the highest paid guy, then Derek Stingley should be making $75 million a year. Yeah. So this is a horrible, horrible deal for the Texans. Stingley is going to be bad next year. It was a contract year. Congratulations. Speaking of contracts, I've only seen people not comment on how much Higgins and Jamar Chase got paid, but what rank the Bengals defense will be next season. Russ, are you a Bengals fan?
No, I'm just a really big T. Higgins fan as I dance around with my T. Higgins signed jersey poster behind my head.
As am I. I am a big T. Higgins fan as well.
Yeah, Joe's been on the T. Higgins train from the second they drafted him.
So. What I hate about T. Higgins is he can't stay healthy as of late, which hurts. And nothing bad to say about Jamar Chase. I mean,
I'm riding on the train and I am conducting this train.
Okay.
That T. Higgins missed as much time as he did last year purely because he was on the tag. And he's just like, you know what? Feeling a little iffy. I'll sit out. No backing to this whatsoever.
But he's done that in back-to-back years, though.
Yeah, 2 years ago he did miss a decent amount of time, but he like got hurt 2 years ago.
I was gonna say
this was just like I pulled my hammy on Friday again.
All of this is screaming to me Keenan Allen early years, and so I'm thinking T. Higgins is going to bounce back and be one of the most dependable guys in the league for years to come. So
I'm down.
When he's healthy and on the field, he's a top
He's something
15
else. And
receiver.
I was ready to turn on him after the first year of injury, but then watching him last year healthy,
he's insane when he's healthy. He's insane.
A healthy T. Higgins and healthy Joe Burrow. I don't care if Jamar Chase is on the field. Like they're
yeah.
Oh,
there was a while where he was out targeting Chase.
Yep,
like,
exactly.
I'm in.
I saw a post literally just before we got on, one of those like meme posts where it said every Bengals game next season, and it was Ravens 97, Bengals 94.
Oh, I would watch that game every week.
Yeah.
People are like, wow, Cincinnati's going to be the first defense to be ranked 33rd in the NFL.
That joke where Alabama will somehow be ranked higher.
Yes.
Have they even made a single defensive move? Like Sam Hubbard retired, Trey Hendrickson wants a trade. That's their whole defense.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm very interested to see what they do in the draft because they obviously have defensive needs, but need to also protect Joe Burrow and the what is that? Close to $500 million investments they have on offense right now between those three guys. It's insane. So they have to protect them. And one guy who just needs to go back into a cave. Aaron Rodgers is seemingly choosing between the Giants and the Steelers. Reports are he's close to a deal with Pittsburgh. Minnesota's out. That's
closer to a deal, not necessarily close. When I was comparing the two based on what I read, it's that he is closer to Pittsburgh than he is the Giants, but nothing sounds close at all right now.
Can you define close?
No, honestly,
like
I
as close as we are to acquiring Canada as a state, or as close as we are to sharing Canada's borders with each other.
Okay, it's probably the borders with the Steelers and the statehood with the Giants.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you for putting that into news terms. Russ, let's just play the game. He goes to Pittsburgh and presumably starts for Pittsburgh at that point all season. DK Metcalf just got traded. DK Metcalf signs a big extension. You are either would you look to acquire DK Metcalf if you knew he had Aaron Rodgers, or if you're looking to try and offload DK Metcalf maybe as DK now has a quarterback, let's offload him at a high level. How are you feeling about DK Metcalf if Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh?
Well, my concern is if Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, DK probably still doesn't really have a quarterback.
Yeah,
that's a great answer.
Rodgers didn't look super great on the Jets, though I would greatly prefer him going to Pittsburgh over the Giants because I live in New Jersey and I've already had to deal with people in New Jersey complaining about Aaron Rodgers that I don't need another group of people in New Jersey.
You're hitting all the people.
Getting it from every angle.
Yeah, all the people.
But like I believe in DK Metcalf as a player. He's, that idea. It was always the joke about Mike Evans. Mike Evans doesn't really need a good quarterback. If you could throw it within 3 feet of him, he can catch the ball because he's so large. DK is the same thing, except he's also so fast.
Yeah.
So, look, I think DK has the skill to be like a top 10 wide receiver in the league, in Dynasty and redraft and in everything. It just never really came together where he was matured enough and he had the good enough quarterback play. Like if he came into the league like 2 years early and still got the tail end of good Russell Wilson instead of that perfect season with Tyler Lockett, if that could have been DK Metcalf, we would have seen record-breaking football. But that's not what we're getting, regardless of who the quarterback in Pittsburgh is at this point. Look, all of the DK Metcalf shares I have in Dynasty, I've paid more than you'll be able to get now for him.
Yeah.
So I'm not really looking to offload him at all. But again, the ideas of him being a top 12, top 15 wide receiver are probably dead at this point, unless something crazy happens. Like maybe they do tank and next year they get Arch, or I guess 2 years because he's coming in 27 at this point. But it's not something that's going to happen now, or not something that you need to act now in Dynasty because, Dynasty, you're playing for the future a little bit. There's plenty of time before you need to go out and be sneaky and go get DK Metcalf. There's just nothing that gets me excited about him right now.
Yeah, just to add to Russ's exacerbation, it's the quarterback class was so bad for free agency. And then if you're not near the top of the draft where you're going to get one of these young guys, and obviously we're already seeing, negative campaigns for both Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders. It just doesn't, DK Metcalf switching teams should be a big deal, and it just doesn't feel that way right now because of the bleak quarterback situation. And then take the DK Metcalf situation and multiply it by 1,000 for Malik Neighbors, who you would just love to see some stability for him in the Giants. And you might be 2 years away from that if this draft doesn't fall the right way.
Looking at free agency in general, are there any moves, Russell, start with you, that you feel have a major impact on this dynasty landscape, upcoming season, 2026, 27, etc.? Any ones that you were like, oh, damn?
Not really. It was a pretty weak class a lot of, and, you know, T. Higgins was the biggest named wide receiver. He went back to his team. There was no, like, Najee Harris to the Chargers, I think, is a pretty decently big deal, but that's not really a dynasty big deal because
it's a 1 year deal, right?
Yeah, and he's already little spyglass into dynasty. Once a running back gets onto their second contract, their dynasty value goes into the toilet because they're already considered olds at that point.
Yeah,
even if they are like 24 at that time, it doesn't matter. But I love, for both real football and for fantasy football, I love Najee on the Chargers, but I don't think it's a big dynasty thing. I think it's just a good fantasy football move.
Yeah. I missed the free agency show, so I'm just going to break down. So obviously you love what you're getting from the Cincinnati wide receivers. It might be better for fantasy than it is for real football, as we've touched on. I've already kind of touched on, I feel like Cooper Kupp's kind of a trap. But the one I brought on the show sheet specifically to talk about is Jordan Mason. And I saw this overreaction from a lot of places, but I'm going to poke fun at my friends over at Football Guys. And we wrote an article about Jordan Mason, the tender that he got, and how big of a deal it was for the San Francisco 49ers, and how maybe because of this second round tender and what they were willing to give Jordan Mason, we should all be concerned about Christian McCaffrey and yada. And then all of a sudden he's just traded for next to nothing to the Minnesota Vikings. And it's funny how we don't let all of the dominoes fall before we form these very, very hard opinions. And so, like I said, we were not that you shouldn't maybe be pouring a little water on Christian McCaffrey, but we were burying Christian McCaffrey, and now it's like, and then they just kind of gave Jordan Mason away, and maybe it's not the indictment on Christian McCaffrey that we thought it was. The one move that you guys probably spent more time on last week, Joe, I love Chris Godwin staying in Tampa Bay. I thought that was an excellent move for Godwin. He's 29 years old. Mike Evans is 31, if I'm correct. So it's an older wide receiving core. It's an older quarterback in Baker Mayfield, but most importantly, it's stability. And for fantasy and dynasty, I think specifically Baker and Godwin have 2 to 3 years left of them where they are really clicking. And Godwin, when he went down last season, was the wide receiver 2. He finished the year a wide receiver 2 in points per game. He was on pace for some gaudy numbers. And we should see an extension of that offense again this year because the new offensive coordinator is the passing game coordinator promoted. So I think we're going to see an extension of that same offense. And that could be really good for Chris Godwin. And I think he's a guy that has a lot of people scared right now. He's a guy I'd be looking to buy, throwing out offers for a couple of 3s and maybe a 2 and just kind of seeing where the conversation leads. Chris Godwin staying in Tampa Bay was a great move for me.
See the Evan Ingram jersey.
Yes. I don't know how I forgot this because I had to take it off my wall and I had to put it next to me. I have a signed Jaguars Evan Ingram jersey. Him going to Denver, I think, is great because
I agree.
He might be the best pass catcher there. I mean, I really do like Cortland Sutton. I was always a big Cortland Sutton fan, or what he could have been, I guess, and never really had the chance to turn into. So he walks into a coach who we've seen do a lot with tight ends. And I'm excited, and especially if you play in tight end premium leagues where most of my tight ends on those rosters are Evan Ingram because the second he went to Jacksonville, I scooped him up. I think it's a big deal. I think that will work well for Ingram.
Quick rope back to Chris Godwin because my New England Patriots apparently offered him $25 million more.
Yeah, took less money
than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did, and he said, No, that's okay. I'm going to stay in Tampa.
Warm weather and no state tax. Let me keep it.
I mean, yes. Also, when you're ranked 31st on the NFLPA report card, doesn't really help you.
Yeah.
And when your GM's a ding-dong, also doesn't really help you. Like, oh, thank God we signed Garrett Bradbury. Matt Collins is here, guys. Look out.
I did not get a chance to watch last week's episode, but I just
I
realized you weren't
wasn't on
it
it.
either. Yeah, I was going to say it was just Josh.
Thank God we signed our 4th linebacker of free agency today, guys. We don't have a left tackle. Oh, God. I hate my team. Anyways, I'm a better Dynasty manager than Elliot Wolf is a freaking NFL GM. And speaking of Dynasty managers, Russ, why should people start, right? Why should nobody's done it before? They've just done redraft. Maybe weirdly they've only done auction drafts, or maybe hey, they're DFS and they want to do more than just be a daily guy, daily gal. They want to be a dynasty gal, a dynasty guy. What would you say to them to have them come over to the dark side?
It's fun. Like, that's really what this comes down to. So the real reason that I got into Dynasty was I'm a little bit of an older gentleman at this point. If you played redraft in 2014 and drafted Odell Beckham at the end of your redraft, and then the season ended and you're like, wait, I don't get to keep him now? You'd be amazed how many people got into Dynasty that year.
Interesting.
I'm sure.
And like that's one of the big things is really if you think you're good and you like these players, why not get to keep them every single year? And the real reason I got into Dynasty was I love trading. Trading was always the most fun to me. My home leagues were keeper leagues, so at least there was a little like it's really hard to trade in redraft because everyone's trying to win. That's all there is. There's winning. Yep. That's all there is. At least when keepers get involved, you can trade, young keeper for, no one wants to keep Joe Mixon. It's the same thing in Dynasty. Yeah. Nobody wants to keep Joe Mixon. They just want to, the season's over, get him off my roster, So like this gives you so much more to play for when you bring in the rookie drafts and, the worst team gets the best rookie draft. So you have teams that, well, if it's in your rules, they tank for, so they don't want to score points. So they'll get those guys off their rosters and take your rookie picks. And there's just a lot more to it that makes it more involved. And it's a lot more fun because you get a lot more ownership of what's happening. Like you control what's happening to your roster. And if you do have that season where your players are hurt, you can do something about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that. You touched on it right at the very end. All I would add is the excitement that Dynasty builds around the NFL draft and rookie drafts for Dynasty. It adds a layer of excitement that you don't really get with redraft. And, obviously draft time, August is everyone's favorite time of the year. So obviously there's draft and there's excitement, but I feel like even around redraft drafts, there's still more excitement around rookie drafts for Dynasty. Like everyone is chomping at the bit the second the NFL draft ends. When's our rookie draft happening? Yep. Because they just, everything's fresh and it makes May so much more interesting for fantasy football than it is in any other kind of redraft league. So I would just emphasize what we're saying here with what it does for rookies. If you're someone who is knowledgeable about these rookies and Russ put up, Odell Beckham, if you paid attention and you got Cooper Kupp at the end of your fourth round of a rookie draft, Khalil Shakir the year before that, I didn't mean to say
Puka Nacua.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah. I got Puka Nacua in fourth rounds of rookie drafts.
Yep. Well, the two names that stick out to me because a good friend of the show, Julia Papworth, and I were in a bunch of leagues together, and she and I were both in love in back-to-back years with Khalil Shakir and Puka Nacua. Mm-hmm. And so we were battling to make sure we were always one pick ahead of each other. And then at one point I was trying to do a deal with her and she's like, I know you're taking my guy, so I'm not going to do this trade with you. So then I'm scrambling to try to get picks ahead of her. And again, it adds a level of excitement to the rookie draft that you can't even imagine if you're not playing in Dynasty.
Yep.
You could be like me and stack up 6 first-round picks last year as well.
I mean, that's boring. What's a first-round pick? Give me all those threes.
Hey, Hey,
He likes darts. He doesn't like horseshoes. He doesn't like a game that's a little easier, a little.
My 6 first-round picks, 3 of them ended up turning into Garrett Wilson, Brock Bowers, and Ladd McConkey.
Yeah.
So we're looking up, guys. I drafted Caleb Williams because I'm like, fuck it, I have a 6th.
That's all this show is where does Joe's dynasty team stand right now?
Not well. I did just put in a trade for Chris Godwin for a 2nd-round pick though while we were sitting here. So something that there's startups and orphans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Startup, self-explanatory. It's a startup. Orphans are those that have been in leagues, maybe say for a year, could be 10 years, that are left over that somebody then needs to come in and fill. For a new dynasty manager, would you recommend startup or orphan? Because they both have their challenges. One is kind of, here's what you got and work with it, and the other's kind of a clean slate. What would you say for somebody brand new?
Honestly, I mean, they both have their merits. You probably want to do a startup unless you find that open team that is just good. 90% of the times when someone leaves a league, it's usually because their team is bad. But every once in a while, you just get that person that needs to cut back. They can't afford it. They have too much going on in their life, and they just happen to win the championship, and they had to leave, which legitimately happened. And I had a championship team leave one of my leagues this year. And I was just like, oh, I don't want to give that team to someone. That's not cool.
Actually, now that you mentioned, I had the exact same thing in a league.
So, like, if you're starting, you probably want to pick your own team. And you know what? If you're the kind of person that's going to put too much pressure on yourself, maybe you do just want to take over an orphan. Because I remember one of my, the beginning, not me, because I don't take fantasy football seriously whatsoever. But there were people who are like, oh my God, is this guy going to be a wide receiver 2 in 3 years? What am I going to do? Whoa, bro.
Brother, what's he going to be this year?
Yeah, calm down, man. We don't know what's happening 3 weeks from now. Don't worry about 3 years from now. If you're the kind of person that's going to put too much pressure on yourself and you just want to hit the ground running, sure, take over an open team. But, if you, again, want that, I hate using the word ownership. It's the only word I can really think of.
No, it's
correct. Yeah.
You get to decide what your team is. I recommend doing a little bit of research before just jumping in, just so you don't draft a bunch of 31-year-olds and then you're kind of screwed next year.
And then you're the guy quitting and someone's taking that.
You're the guy dropping that team. Yeah. But they both absolutely have their merits. But at this point in my dynasty life, I prefer taking over orphans than I do drafting teams. I'm not really good at drafting, if I'm going to be purely honest.
Sure.
I always think I did a great job, and then I look at my team, I'm like, what did I do? Why did I do that? So I love just taking a team that exists and just making my own stamps and going and getting my guys. Because like I said before, trading is my favorite part of all of this. And you trade the most when you don't like the players on your team.
I think it's such a great point. The one hiccup I'll throw on startups, because I agree with everything Russ said, for a new dynasty manager to get that sense that this is your team, startups make the most sense. But if you are brand new to dynasty, the one thing that it's impossible to really know what you're getting yourself into is trades during the startup draft. Ooh. People questioning how much rookie picks are worth versus middle round picks of the old draft. Our good friend Faith Enos hates trading, the most trade averse human being. And then she already struggles with I don't want to say orphans, but with established teams. I couldn't imagine being Faith in a startup draft where someone's offering you a 2027 second for your 7th pick. And it's like, what? I don't know what the value is on these things. And even for me, who I started off where I feel like I am good at drafting. So I started off where I loved startups. And then I was always the person during the draft that would give up my rookie ones to get players in this draft that I wanted. My last 2 startups were last season and the season before. I actually decided to go the other route. Russ, one of the leagues of yours we're going to talk about was one of these leagues where someone offered me their rookie picks for a pick that I really didn't want to make. And I was like, you know what? I'm accepting every rookie pick offer that comes to me for this entire draft. I didn't even look at them. I just clicked accept every single time. I ended up with like 5 first-round picks in a 10-team league, and then had future picks that I'm still dealing with right now. It's the only league, because of the draft capital, that I walked away with Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., which was kind of like my goal when I was doing all of this to begin with. Now, obviously, that didn't work out fantastically in year 1, but I'm hoping things are going to get better in year 2.
See, the key is to get 6 first-round picks and use them on good players. So that's what I do.
Hey, I got Bo Nix with one of those picks as well, where I was one of the only people that said, especially in a super flex, I'm taking Bo Nix at the end of every first round because I was very high on the kid. So
yeah, see, Russ, my problem is that like I'm good in rookie drafts. The problem is they just don't want to perform for me when they need to. Again, had Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey and the rest of my team just fell to pieces. This is my love-hate relationship with Dynasty. You can ask Ryan. I draft extremely well.
Yeah.
Well, did you have your meeting with the guys? Did you have
no
after season sit down, you talk with them? See, what can I do better for next year? How could I make this more like your home?
Listen. I've tried to do Zoom calls with them. They don't pick up. I've tried to bribe them, right? Money doesn't work.
No. It's
just I sit here, I contemplate life every time I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm just gonna lose this week. Like, the only reason I have not given up on Dynasty is because I'm simply in it with Josh and Ryan. That's the only reason I have not fully given up on Dynasty, is because
peer pressure.
Literally, like, that's not even a joke. Peer pressure.
I mean, it's truly the only league we play in together, Joe. So I would be sad if you left.
Peer pressure. And it's fun also in my misery, because I'm sitting here like, my roster is good. Like, I know for a fact that my roster is good. It just, I don't know.
Don't you feel great knowing that it'll still be your roster next year? And these players who are good will have another chance?
No.
You're supposed to say yes.
No.
You rewind.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry. Ask me again. I got it.
So don't you feel good that it's going to be your roster next year too?
No.
I feel lied to.
That's I love redraft drafting, so that's why I do enjoy that. I think my biggest pain point right now is that I'm a big running backs guy.
Yep.
And I have no running backs.
Yeah.
So
that's actually a hard transition to make for a redraft brain going into Dynasty is, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but like, you kind of have to make running backs second-class citizens unless you are getting the best of the best and you are ready to win right now.
Yep.
So.
Yes. So, for example, for those wondering, wow, how bad are his running backs? Let me tell you. Roshan Johnson and Marshawn Lloyd are currently on the IR. On my bench is Jonathan Brooks and Jalen Warren. And in my starting lineup right now, obviously the end of the season, Chase Brown and Kendre Miller. Chase Brown is playing the heroist of heroist RBs at the current moment. And I hate hero RB. I think it is one of the worst strategies imaginable. I like having 3 solid running backs. So it hurts me in this situation. So let's talk about rookie drafts for a sec, Russ. Say if you're looking at rookie drafts, are you drafting more for positional need or best available, best on the board?
Always best available. You draft for talent, you trade for need. If you are going into... What was that?
I said
great way to word it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. If you should not, I'm not even going to, let me word it this way. You should not depend on your rookies to score well for you. Is it great when they do? Absolutely. Are you going to draft Ashton Jeanty and expect him to score? I mean, yes. There's exceptions. But most of the times you are not drafting these rookies expecting them to make your lineup, especially at the beginning of their rookie year. It doesn't happen very often. We're sitting here talking about how much we love Jackson Smith-Njigba. He just started to really hit the end of his second year. Mm-hmm. Of course, he was gradually getting better from the very beginning. And of course, I'll sit here talking and gushing over JSN for as long as you need me to. But not the point. So
we need to invite
that's why
Russ
you
back
never
for
really
the
draft
Seattle
for
show
need.
this summer.
The only time you draft, again, it's not really a need, because the way you build dynasty teams is the way, Joe, you seem to hate, is because you usually build around young wide receivers, and if you play super flex, which means you could play with multiple quarterbacks, and then running backs and tight ends are the last things you really deal with. So need is a weird word. You need for your building plans, yes. So you draft those young wide receivers, you build that core of your roster. Draft for need, like, I'm weak at RB2, so I'm going to draft a running back. No, you really should not do that.
Yeah. And to add to Russ's point and bringing back in the super flex, we've seen this really bite people over the last few years where they needed to land that quarterback too. So they're taking guys like Will Levis and players that just aren't popping and letting wide receivers and running backs fall, especially wide receivers fall. But then, like, even just looking at last year's draft, it was obviously Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels as the top in most super flex draft. Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers fell to teams that had no business getting them because people were like, I have to fill this quarterback spot. And it's like, maybe you would have been better off grabbing Malik Neighbors and worrying about your quarterback through free agency. It's the interesting give and take.
Well, I went back to 2023 rookie draft for this one. So guys that have been in the league for 2 years. I don't want to just go off the 1 year one. This was the Puka Nacua year, 4th round pick. This is a 10-team, 1 QB dynasty league.
Is this our league, Joe?
This is our league. Yep.
Okay.
So comparative to, again, drafting for positional need base or drafting for best available. Very early on in the draft, Dalton Kincaid went at the 106.
Oof.
Felt more like a positional need.
Yeah.
Whereas, we'll just go with the guy right after him, Zay Flowers went 107. Devon Achane went 109. Wrapping even into the second round, Rashee Rice went 202.
Skips over the Quentin Johnston pick, I noticed.
Quentin Johnston was the 1-3.
Wow! I thought he was wow.
Quentin Johnston was the first wide receiver off the board in this draft.
Oof. I loved Quentin Johnston, and man, would you
like to know the 2 receivers that went after him? Sure you do. Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jordan Addison.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Those should definitely have been the first 2 wide receivers off.
Yeah. Yep. So that happened. I think sometimes too, 1 QBs, it's a little different, but quarterbacks can maybe get boosted a little bit because it is like a 1 position need where, like, if you're dying at the quarterback position, maybe you can stretch a little bit on that one.
Usually in a league like ours, you'll see like a one-off flyer. And this past year was an example, Joe. I got really down on Justin Herbert and Jaden Daniels fell to me. So I took him higher than I should have in a 1 QB league, but I'm not mad at it. Let me tell you.
And I took Caleb Williams in the first round with one of my 6 picks. Cause I'm like,
You have 6 picks. Why not?
Exactly. So I'm like, I don't even like Caleb Williams, but like on the off chance that the guy actually lives up to be what everyone expects him to be, cool. If not, I had 5 other picks. So I just, again, at that point, that's just, you're working with house money at that point. But yeah, I mean, that goes to show, don't take Dalton Kincaid at the 106.
Dude.
It's a little early. When, again, just looking, I mean, almost everybody in the second round outside of Anthony Richardson was a better pick than that. So Rashee Rice, Chase Brown, Bryce Young now looking up at this point, but Tank Bigsby's had games. Kayshon Boutte had games last year. Jonathan Mingo's a bust. But Roshan Johnson, CJ Stroud, like, don't reach, especially at the tight end position. My God, unless it is Brock Bowers, who is far and away, very clearly the best tight end prospect ever in existence.
Yeah.
I don't know how we feel about tight ends this season. It'll rope into, I'm going to jump over a couple questions here, but tight end premium, because let's say that you are in a tight end premium. Maybe Dalton Kincaid at the 106 isn't the dumbest draft pick on planet Earth. It's still not a good one, but it might not be the dumbest one on planet Earth. How do you feel on 1, Superflex, and 2, tight end premium, and do you feel these should be more consistent not even just in redraft, but in a dynasty landscape?
Well, they're different. And we use them for different reasons. We play Superflex because of a supply and demand problem. There's too many decent quarterbacks. There's too many quarterbacks that are good. Well, at least most of the times. This past year, maybe not.
Yeah.
Serviceable. How about that?
Yeah, serviceable. Yeah, like there's that's why we want to start more quarterbacks, is because you're playing in a normal league and like usually like Justin Herbert's probably on someone's bench in a 1 quarterback league. And it's just like, what? Really? Justin Herbert on a bench? That's just silly. So we start more quarterbacks. Yeah. Tight ends, there's not a lot of good tight ends. But like let's use nice words and say there's just not a lot of good tight ends. So that's why we give them more points. One boosts value more than the other. Superflex boosts quarterbacks value more than tight end premium boosts tight ends value. Yeah. And depending on how high your tight end premium gets, that's the way it should be. Like there's a lot of leagues right now that are 1 point PPR and then the tight end gets an extra full point on top. Like that scares me. Like that's like, imagine Brock Bowers scoring.
That's a Brock Bowers cheat code right there.
Like up until this past year, it was the Travis Kelce rule. Like, you want to win, you get Travis Kelce on your team. So like I like both of those. I believe both of those should be standard in every format you play, only because, again, it adds to the fun. It makes you not want to cry when you don't have a top tier tight end. You'll have, Tucker Kraft, and you won't want to just cry that you have to start someone. Like you'll be okay. He can catch 3 balls, like an extra 1.5 for it, and it won't be the worst day in the world. But for quarterbacks, there's so many good quarterbacks. Why have them sit on people's benches doing absolutely nothing when you can just add another starting spot to your lineup?
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. Tight end premium is such a misunderstood scoring thing because the rich get richer. What you're really trying to do is make sure that tight ends are viable towards the back end of your flex spots. Yep. So if you're going to have a ton of flex, you want to make sure those tight ends are viable. So one of the ways I kind of look at tight end premium when we were measuring it out for a new league I started last year was I looked at how many guys were going to start in flex for the league. And I think this was like a 4 or 5 flex league. So when you take the wide receivers, essentially we were going to be starting 100 combined running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. So I wanted to make sure there were going to be some tight ends in that top 100. Otherwise, they're worthless, like completely and utterly worthless. And that's kind of where you have to like play around with tight end premium. But Russ hit such a perfect nail on the head. You have to be careful going too far by making a guy like, I don't know. I can't think of a bad tight end right now. By making a guy like Cole Kmet a viable flex option, you are making Brock Bowers a god, and you're hurting the actual tight end starting spot to make your 5th flex spot better. Like you got to be very careful about how you handle that.
I'll say, and this is a redraft league, but it's IDPs as well. We have 5 flex spots. You are not. It's a quarterback and 5 flexes. You are not required to start a tight end. I have not employed a tight end on that team for the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
there's no reason. There is literally no reason, unless it is last year, unless it was Brock Bowers, to have a tight end on my roster. And in one league, Ryan knows this, I took Jonnu Smith with the last pick in a 14-team league in the 18th round. He was the tight end 4.
Yeah.
That's just how bad the tight end position is. It's just not good. So, yeah, there's a big balance here that you have to do. And as that balance, Mr. Amazing Commissioner over here, as I see on this question, says, talk about the Harry Potter League. Buddy. Yes, you.
Oh, you are talking about me. I was joking.
Yeah. Amazing Commissioner says in here the Harry Potter League, but how important is it, especially in Dynasty, to have a good and at least on top of it commissioner?
Oh, it's literally everything. Just because, like Ryan was talking about before, how much fun comes around the rookie draft, and it takes the wind out of your sails where if like they just don't respond. You're like, oh man, all right, when's the rookie draft? When's the rookie draft? Can we draft? Can we draft? Can we draft? Can we draft? Like what's going on?
Yeah.
And with at least all my leagues are on myfantasyleague.com, where they have the rollover to the next year, and because with Dynasty you get your rookie draft picks, and when they do the rollover you get the next year picks.
Yep.
So you want them to roll over and to create the rookie draft order, so there's pick numbers and everything, like and not to mention year over year, and especially if they're handling your money, which of course even in redraft that's important to have a good commissioner for that one. But having a good commissioner is absolutely key at this point. How long I've been playing, how many leagues I'm in, the two things I care about when joining a league right now is who's running it and who else is in it.
Yeah.
The rest of it's just, okay, I'll figure out how many players I need to start, who's scoring how many points, whatever, that's fine. As long as I can trust the person that's running it and I like the people that are in the league.
I don't want Russ to sell himself short, because you hit on so many of the things. So people often say that I'm a good commissioner, but Russ takes it to another level when it comes to fun. But I want to go back to what you said, Russ, because one of the things that I think people respect and like about me as a commissioner is the things you mentioned. Timeliness. Make sure they know that the league is going to roll over. Make sure the draft picks are up to date. Make sure you've done everything. Make sure you explain everything very, very clearly. And then the other part is, if someone screws up, let them know they screwed up. And I'm like, if it's not something like egregious, I've never dealt with collusion in a league, but make the whole league should be aware of what's going on with things that are going on. Yeah. Bylaws, all of that kind of stuff. But anything you can do to keep things as public as possible, to keep the league on top of everything, go for that. But handle the money, handle the payouts quickly. Man, do people love getting paid as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And like I said, those things. But Russ, I wanted to talk about your Harry Potter league, because you have such great commissioners like Russ out there. Russ does a weekly video where the whole league is based on Harry Potter. We are split into houses, and we get house points, if you're familiar with that at all, based on, he has the wand, based on just random stuff, but it's all fantasy football. Well, not always, because sometimes houses just lose or gain points depending on the wheel of destiny. Finding the right commissioner can make a league so much more fun, to where a bad year in the Harry Potter league is more fun than a championship year in a very boring league. So I agree 100%. When people ask me to take over Orphans, I literally don't ask what the team looks like. Could not care less what the team looks like. What I want to know is, what are the rules? Is this league actually fun? Is it something that I think I can excel at? Is it 800 IDP and 40-man rosters where I'm like, maybe I don't want anything to do with this because I'm not good at that. But I want to know the rules. But then, as Russ said, who else is playing? Why did I even get brought up in this? Because who recommended me to be in this league? And then when I find out it's really cool people playing, I'm like, all right, well, I'm in. And they're like, well, do you want to see the roster? I was like, I'll see it when you assign it to me. And then none of those guys are going to be on my team in 2 weeks anyway. So we'll get it all figured out. Because like Russ, I'm also huge on trading. So.
Yep. Now, Russ, I know you have an out, and I want you to give you some time to talk about Fantasy Cares before you head out of here.
Yes, Fantasy Cares. It's a charity based around fantasy sports. The big message we like to get out there is to have everyone add a charitable element to their fantasy leagues. I run, I used to host the Trade Addicts podcasts. I now hand it over to my good friend Frank, and Brocky's still over there. They're killing it. So go check out the Trade Addicts podcast if you do get into Dynasty, because that is a Dynasty-centric show. But I run 11 Trade Addicts leagues that are all Dynasty leagues, and the buy-in is $42 because 42 is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. Okay. But also because we have 2 buy-ins worth, 2.5 buy-ins go to charity. So $108 goes to charity. That's not the exact math, but I don't remember how I got to 108. But every single league I commissioner, nice. Every single league I am the commissioner of, or every single league I commission, has money that goes to charity. In the Harry Potter league, more money goes to charity than goes to any person, or any people. You know, like that is really what we try and push at Fantasy Cares. If you want to donate to us, we are an official 501c3. Our big venture every year is we do big shopping for Toys for Tots for the holidays. So if you go to @fantasycares.org on any social media, you can scroll back, and you can see all the shopping trips we've done. Over $120,000 we went shopping with this past year, all across the country to give toys for kids for the holidays. But also we do a whole lot of donating throughout the entire year to any different cause we can. It was National Women's Day a couple of weeks ago, so we donated to Play Like a Girl. Every October, breast cancer awareness, so, we always say, if you want to donate to us, we would love you for that, but just donate to someone. We play a silly game with silly money. I mean, at least I do. If you play this like as a living, cool. I think like that's pretty awesome to say that you play fantasy football for a living. But if not, you play with extra money, in which case let that extra money go to some good use, not just roll it back in, have some fun, do some good.
Love it.
Boom. Love it. Russ, appreciate you joining. Ryan and I will close it out from here. We know you got another show.
Yeah, Fantasy Cares.
I got it. Yeah, on the Fantasy Cares YouTube channel @FantasyCares.org on YouTube. Yeah. Every Monday there's trivia night with Joey Wright.
Yeah.
Where you can join in the chat. You get to play live trivia. It's just ridiculously fun because who doesn't love trivia?
Yep.
On Tuesdays, if you do want to get into Dynasty, there's the Rookie Hootenanny, where Zach Reed and J Mike, where they go over a bunch of the incoming rookies and talk about them in depth, on Tuesdays. And then Wednesdays, we just literally hang out and talk about whatever we feel like. It's not even about fantasy football anymore. It's usually mostly about food. We talk a lot about food, actually.
I love it.
But that's about it. FantasyCares.org is our website. Check us out. Fantasy Cares @FantasyCares.org on every social media you can.
Perfect.
Once we're done here, go over and tune into Fantasy Cares.
Yeah.
Go watch Russ. Appreciate you, Russ. Thank you for coming on.
Have a good night, buddy.
Bye.
Hope everyone enjoys some Dynasty, as Ryan and I will finish it out here as we keep going. Boom, side by side. All right. I still hate Dynasty. I'm just going to say it. I still don't like it, but I will play it and I will have fun. I'm just going to hate myself every step of the way. And I think that was the theme of all of last year fantasy football. It didn't matter if it was Dynasty or redraft. I still hated every single week.
Yeah.
So, and I'm still here. We're still standing.
Last year was
abysmal.
Rough year because I'm in so many leagues. We all joined far too many leagues during COVID. And so I'm in so many now. And I'm that guy, Joe. I will not leave a league. I had a Dynasty collapse and I was so fucking relieved because I was just so done with it. And I'm like, I know I could have just left, but I'm just not that guy. I will not leave league. And I'm not saying any of you should be like that. If you are unhappy in a league, I feel like I'm giving relationship advice. Leave by all means. So
no one's holding a gun to your head.
No.
Leave. Please leave. We'll get into those, just some 2025 Dynasty questions. Yeah. Dynasty Sleepers. These are always fun because they just tend to be sleepers in general for redraft at that point. But as the season sits right now, 6 days in.
Yeah.
Anybody fun you like?
So yeah, I agree that a lot of them are redraft sleepers, but what I was looking for in this, and full disclosure of how I made my list, and my list was not very big because I thought we were going to have Russ, so we're going to have a few players to talk about here. But I went to my Dynasty rankings on Football Guys, and I looked for the guys that I had marginally ranked ahead of the consensus. And the first name that popped up, Joe, and this is all subject to change with the NFL draft, and you're not going to like this name, but this offense needs to be taken seriously. And that's DeAndre Swift in Chicago. Right now, he's it. Obviously, they have Roschon Johnson there.
Why do you think I wouldn't like that name?
I don't know. For some reason, I thought you had a vendetta against DeAndre Swift.
I had DeAndre Swift last year. Okay. He pissed me the fuck off, but for like 4 weeks, he was killing it.
Now, obviously, Chicago is a everybody's favorite spot to mock Ashton Genty to right now, except for all of our fans who want him to be in Denver. But
I mean, that's a good spot.
Yeah. Everybody's favorite spot to mock him to is Chicago. But if that doesn't happen and they go into next year with Swift and Roschon Johnson again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but Swift had some pretty decent numbers for a guy that I don't think is going to cost you anything to go purchase right now in Dynasty. He was the RB19, caught 42 balls for 386 yards. But more importantly, just turned 26 years old. Still very young, even by Dynasty standards. Probably has 3 more years under the belt relatively easily. Are they all in Chicago? Who's to say? But at least for next season, if I'm in a win now mode and I need an RB2, Joe, sort of like the team you're dealing with in our league, DeAndre Swift's a guy that I'm not mad at. I always like to look for rookies that underperformed that I think I could get cheap. And I'm wondering if people maybe turned on Trey Benson because it was a suboptimal season where James Conner handled almost all of the workload. And even when Conner didn't play, Benson wasn't 100% healthy and able to take over that job. Amari DiMercato was heavily involved. Trey Benson was people smarter than me's favorite running back out of last year's draft. I remember we had Jagger May on this show saying Trey Benson is the only 3-down running back. And I respect the hell out of what Jagger May has to say about these rookies. So if Trey Benson's out there, he's a guy I'm going to put a feeler. If I can land him for a 2 when he just cost you a 1 the year before, I'm not going to be mad about that. And then Joe, the last name, we're all tired of hearing this. But how cheap is Kyle Pitts at this point? I at least want to know. Tight ends suck. Don't get me wrong, and do not overpay. But if I can get Kyle Pitts for a back end 2,
is he still a Falcon? Have I missed things? Is he still on?
Still a Falcon, but I'm going on the hope that Michael Penix Jr. is finally going to unlock this offense. I mean, Pitts was as average gets last year. Tight end 15, 47 catches, played all 17 games. Did score 4 touchdowns, 600 yards. All of those are decent numbers. I guess, Joe, and this is what we've all been saying, like, so athletic, only going to be 25 years old this season. Like, I don't know. I was never on board with paying the high prices for Kyle Pitts, but in redraft, we've seen those prices fall. I just don't know if the dynasty prices matched. So when I call these guys sleepers, these are guys that I'd be willing to throw suboptimal offers out for and see what the counters look like. So
here's my issue with Pitts is, yes, Kirk Cousins wasn't great last year, but Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and Ray McLeod still all had
got the job done.
Good seasons. Drake London, I think we maybe would have hoped a little more for, but Mooney overperformed. Ray McLeod wildly overperformed. And Kyle Pitts, who had a quarterback known for targeting the tight end position, just didn't throw at the tight end.
Yeah.
Now, that could be a combination of Kirk not looking at Kyle Pitts, Kirk having too many receiving options to throw to Kyle Pitts, or just in general, the offense not utilizing the tight end very well. So there's there's all that, but then you go back and argue, like, now Minnesota knew how to use the tight end. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are better than Drake London and Darnell Mooney. So yeah, TJ Hawkinson still got balls in that offense. So that's a null and void point that Kirk still wouldn't spread the ball around. Like, Ray McLeod was getting the fucking football last year when he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
He earned it, but like that should go to other guys. So if you want to get Kyle Pitts this year and then expect him in 2026 to sign with a team that uses the tight end.
That's actually an interesting point too. He'll be 26.
So here's how I see this. I see this as Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith was written off completely. Now, grant Jonnu Smith was actually good to start his career. He did have a couple good seasons under Arthur Smith in Tennessee. But when he went to New England, dog shit. He was horrible, injured, was not good. Bounced around to a few teams, wasn't great, ends up in what we all said was the ideal spot in Miami because they needed 100%. A tight end, and he's fast, he's speed, he fits the profile, ends up being the tight end 4.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, again, I was not as high on Pitts when the rest of the world was. I
was not high on him either.
I have 0 Kyle Pitts shares. I'm in 11 or 12 dynasty leagues. I do not have Kyle Pitts on one of those teams. I'm like Russ. I have a lot of Evan Ingram because I'll buy the older tight ends. So I have a lot of Evan Ingram, but Joe, I remember when we talked about this 2 years ago, one of my feathers in my cap was Trey McBride was going too low in rookie drafts. He was the first tight end off the board in that draft. So I was able to get Trey McBride in 3rd and 4th rounds as the first tight end drafted. And I gobbled him up. And now I have him in all these teams that Travis Kelce's about to retire from. So
I will not be going for Pitts because I have Brock Bowers.
yeah, I was going to say that
so I'm out.
What I did with McBride, you did with Bowers last year. So you're Brock Bowers across the board. So
I got 6 first-round picks to draft Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers.
Yeah,
I
knew you were walking out with Georgia Bulldogs.
I knew immediately who I was getting, and I knew I was going to be right on both accounts.
And you were.
And I was. And ended up with I think I took a Dunze at 2, which might not be the greatest move right now.
Ooh, I disagree. I think we are going to see breakout like crazy on Roma Dunze.
See, that's what I want. I just need Caleb Williams to actually hit his passes.
I almost put him on this list for this category, Joe, but I actually don't know that a Dunze is a sellable asset. I don't think anybody's looking to move off of him. So
no, I'm not gonna move off him. But just based off of year 1, Malik Neighbors would have been the better draft pick. But I agree. If you just watch every route that Roma Dunze ran and how many times Caleb Williams over or underthrew him, Roma Dunze would have Malik Neighbors' numbers. Caleb Williams just couldn't put the ball on any receiver's chest to save his life, but especially Roma Dunze. There were just times he just wouldn't target DJ Moore, which is, again, the most asinine thing for a quarterback in this league to do.
I think a Dunze and DJ Moore are going to thrive in this Ben Johnson system, so I think it's going to work out really well.
Oh, I am dying for that. If I can get JSN, Garrett Wilson, Rashee Rice, and Roma Dunze to all just show up on the same fucking day, week in, week out, that would be great for my Dynasty team, Ryan. It'd be great.
Agree.
And hey, I had Caleb Williams as well. So, and we'll end this with, are there any under-the-radar sells? Might be closer to the end of the line, top of their value, that you might be either trying to pick up that are like a little under the wire, or
I was pretty happy with myself with this question. When I was looking at the answers, I feel like not to pick on Chris Molina, Cooper Kupp. If I look for guys where value spiked when it shouldn't have, and we saw this tremendous dip in Cooper Kupp's value towards the end of last year for obvious reasons. But now in this new team, people are looking to all of a sudden buy. Joe, I wonder how you would feel. I have 2 more names I'm going to throw out here, 3 more actually, but one name that pops up when I'm saying this. How do we feel about Davante Adams kind of in the exact same situation, sliding into that Cooper Kupp role? Obviously, I remember you were getting kind of down on Davante towards the end of last year. I think he's a year younger than Kupp. No. You're older than Kupp.
I'll say I was down on Davante because Rodgers can't throw the football anymore. He's going to stay with Rodgers, and he's
okay. That's a good point. You did preface it.
Yeah, he's a pissy motherfucker. When I saw he signed with the Rams, I was like, I might be taking Davante Adams in redraft. Aggressively.
So in Dynasty, you're kind of playing for that 2-year window. I guess my issue with the Rams is I feel like we're playing will he, won't he with McVay and Matthew Stafford every season. And while that does not concern me the least bit for Puka Nacua, for an older receiver, I feel like Davante Adams could so easily be on another team again in 2026. And so for Dynasty, that bothers me a bit. This one hurts, Joe. I think there's trade value in this guy, and I was appalled to see that Tyrone Tracy is already 25 years old. So we're talking about a late day 2, early day 3 pick. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Day 3. I think he was round 6. Day 3 running back. The statistics are so stacked against day 3 running backs, who is already 25 years old, playing on a piss poor offense. There are so many things working against Tyrone Tracy. I have him on probably 3 dynasty teams, maybe more. I'm probably going to look to sell if there's an RB needy team that's going to give me like a 2. When I got this guy as an undrafted free agent or a 4th or 5th round pick, I'm willing to move off of Tyrone Tracy, Joe, based on his age. And I know I just said about DeAndre Swift that 25 is not that old, but Tyrone Tracy's given us like half a good season. And I just feel like his value right now might be the highest it's ever going to be. I don't see Tyrone Tracy becoming a top 15 running back in this league. Top 25, probably, maybe. not top 15, Joe. So I'm willing to move off of a guy who I have been an ambassador for just because there are more red flags than you'd like to see.
25 doesn't concern me.
That's fair.
Especially for a guy that played, it was his rookie year.
And he's a converted wide receiver, so it's not like there's a lot of tread on his tires coming from college either. So
yeah, and he went to Purdue, I think.
You're probably right. I couldn't tell you for sure. I know he did a transfer.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty. Maybe it was just his last year at Purdue. I don't know.
Yeah,
that program's horrendous. So like, it was that doesn't concern me as much. Who's your last guy?
Two more quick guys. You actually mentioned one, so I'll throw him out here real quick. Jonnu Smith is 29 years old. You never know what's going to happen with that Miami offense, and tight ends are kind of a dime a dozen. I don't know that I'm going into this season expecting a repeat of Jonnu Smith. So if there is value there, good call on Tyrone Tracy. It was Purdue, Joe. I would probably move off of Jonnu Smith if the trade is right. If I could get a second round pick for Jonnu Smith, I'm definitely selling. The last guy, Joe, is a guy who I have way too many of, and we've talked about him a lot on this show. But for every positive thing we had to say about DK Metcalf, if that is not a direct negative for George Pickens.
Get rid of him. Oh, Pickens? I was going to say get rid of Metcalf.
Oh, no.
Sell both of them.
So Pickens is this large concern because of the quarterback situation, the DK Metcalf situation, but then also the head case situation. And it seems like Pickens is going to quickly go the way of Deontay Johnson, where he's going to fight his way out of Pittsburgh and then do jack shit once he gets out. I am very concerned about George Pickens and his game in the NFL, Joe. So that would be a guy that if there's a sell window out there for George Pickens, I'm moving off of him.
My thing with Pickens is I think Pittsburgh trades him before the deadline this year.
And that seems to be the consensus.
And he goes to a team that's going to use him. So I think his value gets better as the season goes on. And yes, him and DK are completely redundant in their skill sets and their attitude. But teams are going to favor DK Metcalf more than they're going to favor George Pickens. So if Pickens is seeing the two, I think there's more. I think his value is down right now. I think he's going to have more value as the season goes on. So I'd wait.
Such a great point. My biggest concern is just how much are they going to actually throw the ball in Pittsburgh? Is this going to be a new offense? And again, who's the fucking quarterback? Which that might be your window to sell Pickens if Aaron Rodgers signs and someone's super excited that Aaron Rodgers is going to be throwing him the ball, I'm moving him at that point. So
I got a weird feeling Pittsburgh's going to take fucking Jackson Dart in the second round. It just that I don't know why that feels like a Pittsburgh quarterback pick, right? Jackson Dart just feels like that kind of guy. And before we head out of here, Easy B with a question. I feel like I know your answer, but I could be wrong here.
I'll be honest, I haven't even had a chance to read the question. I was making sure I had it ready to go in the show sheet. So
Superflex 12-man league. He has the 102, was offered the 106 in an early 2026 first rounder for the 102 in a late 2026 first. So essentially, he would get the 106 in an early first next year for the 102 this year in a late first in 2026.
So I am super early in my rookie rankings, but what I'd like to look at, I think I'm probably taking this trade unless I'm desperate at quarterback, and we kind of talked about that with Russ earlier, is maybe don't force the quarterback pick. But looking at my Superflex rankings, when I go down to the 106, here are my top 6 in Superflex as it stands. And again, these still need work. But my top 6 are Ashton Genty, Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, Tet McMillan, Luther Burden, and Emeka Egbuka. So I'm walking out with one of those guys, and you sound pretty positive that the 26 is going to be a higher pick next year. I'll make that trade if I'm walking in. I didn't even throw out, you have Amari and Hampton. You still have Jackson Dart in a super flex league. So depending on where these guys end up, I'm probably going to make that trade, Joe, unless I am so sold on Cam Ward, because I imagine Ashton Genty is going to be the first pick of this draft.
See, that's where I'm like, does the 101 need a quarterback?
Yeah. Like, do you have to wait until you're on the clock to make this trade?
Because if he does, and you don't,
and you get
Ashton Genty at the 102.
And most of the Dynasty minds that I listen to, and Joe and I would be the first to tell you, we are not Dynasty experts. We had the Dynasty expert on. He had to get off the show about 20 minutes ago. But Joe and I play Dynasty, and I follow a lot of different people. And most of the people I'm hearing, Joe, is the 26 draft is awful.
What I've heard too. He said Genty is going to be the one. Like he already knows.
So you're going to go Ward.
So he would take Cam Ward.
I think I
would trade. I trade back. Yep, trade back. Again, unless you are dead sold that Cam Ward is
Jaden Daniels. Yeah. I mean, I know none of them can run like Jaden Daniels, but
but like how about prime Cam Newton? Right? Give him prime Cam Newton. If you think he's that, stay put. That makes sense.
Well, and I guess easy. You're still with us. Who are your current quarterbacks? Do you have a desperate need at quarterback? Because if you're sitting with two guys who are going to be able to start for you for the next 3 years, you make this trade immediately because you're going to walk out with Egbuka, Hampton, maybe Luther Burden. Luther Burden, the vibes I'm getting are Malik Neighbors vibes, where Luther Burden could be the best wide receiver in this draft, but we want to give it to Tet McMillan. I feel like Luther Burden could end up being a steal.
So here's where he could walk away with Tet McMillan is the Patriots won't do it. But if they somehow draft Tet McMillan at 4, I weirdly feel people are going to be like, don't like that.
Yeah, that's fair. And if you walk out with Tet McMillan, this is a huge win. That kid can ball.
And let's get this straight. Any receiver that goes with Drake May is going to have a fun time in that offense.
Yeah.
You're going to have a great time, especially if
remember,
that guy can play the slot.
Yeah, and Joe, you know this better than anybody, but for our viewing audience, remember, this isn't last year's Patriots offense. This is Josh McDaniel back. This is going to be a much more efficient offense with a very good up-and-coming quarterback. You want the wide receiver one in this offense, unless it's one of the guys that are there right now, though whoever's playing the slot.
The people were hyping up DeMario Douglas last year. This might be
you
the
were
year.
A year
folks.
Early. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you were a year early. This might be the year. So, but yeah, I mean, you're walking away with any of those top 6 again, unless you are dying for a quarterback at this point in time. The guy I would take would be Cam Ward.
Yeah, Joe, we dropped the ball here, so before we get out of here, we'd be remiss if we don't mention that we do have a partnership, guys, with Dynasty Nerds. So on top of, watching us, this is a show that's on every Wednesday. We don't take a Wednesday off. If you guys are looking to get better at Dynasty, make sure you guys look at Dynasty Nerds in the Nerd Film Room and all the cool stuff they have over there. If you use promo code Club Fantasy, all spelled out, it's 15% off of your membership. Very cool tools. They break down film for you. They have a trade calculator. They do mock drafts, everything you could possibly want. Make sure you guys join the Nerd Herd and use promo code Club Fantasy.
Do employees get comps for that, or do I also have to use the Club Fantasy?
I think we have a comped membership. I'll look into it and I'll let you know. So
great. I don't know if it's going to help me, but like maybe I'll take a look and learn some things.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I think I could use that greatly. So. That's I don't know where we were before that, but it's trade back unless you are in dire need again. My number one guy right now is Cam Ward if you're taking a quarterback. So
and that's kind of where I stand. And Joe, I would have to be in dire straits at quarterback. I'd have to be stuck with like an Anthony Richardson, Will Levis team before I'm not making this trade.
Yeah, I agree. And for somebody who's in a 1 QB, my starting quarterback was Kyler Murray. My backup was Matt Stafford and Justin Fields. A la taking Caleb Williams in the first round with one of my 6 picks because fuck it, we need a quarterback.
No, it makes when you have that many picks, it makes a ton of sense. So yeah, if you are desperate easy at quarterback, make that trade. I haven't heard great things about the 26th draft, but I guarantee you there's going to be 3 players you want at the top of that draft. So
yeah, and if it comes early enough that there's going to be enough guys. And if the draft's bad, trade the pick for a veteran. Somebody will do that. There's going to be somebody in love with some rookie,
or get a 2027 pick. Try to get I'm blanking on the kid's name right now. Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. That's who you want 27 picks to try to land this kid. From what I understand. People smarter than me saying this kid is going to come in and change the NFL. They said he would have been the first pick of this year's draft if he came out. So
all I know is Ohio State really hasn't missed at the receiver position in recent years. So you want You want an Ohio State wide receiver
And every person who follows the program says Jeremiah Smith is better than any single one of these guys. So,
guys, all you need to know is that Ohio State wide receivers made Justin Fields a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Made
And
C.J. Stroud the 102.
And just got him paid $40 million.
Made C.J. Stroud the 102.
Yep.
And made, who the fuck was their quarterback last year? Will Shepard. What the hell was his name? Will Howard. The guy who literally couldn't hit the broadside of a barn at the combine.
Will Howard, if the combine didn't exist, would have been such a better draft pick, but I think he killed himself at the combine. So
they made Will Howard a national champion. That is how good Ohio State was. Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson made Justin Fields look viable. I'm sorry, what? I think Terry actually might have been before his time.
Made him look like a thrower.
Fucking literally. Like, Justin Fields might look good this year because he's back with Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely insane. So, there you go, guys. That is all we have for today. For Ryan, Josh, myself, and for our good buddy Russ. Thanks, shout out Russ for joining. Also, if you're watching us live, head over to Fantasy Cares. Russ is live right now with his Wednesday show with his crew. Next week, stars of tomorrow, baby. We're talking rookies. It's coming back. We are, as of next week, a month away from the NFL draft.
1 month away. Yep.
Uno month. That's crazy. 1 month away from the NFL draft next week. We'll start, as we always do, at the quarterback position, looking at the two top dogs, and they're the Jackson Darts of the world, and maybe some other low-end guys could make some splashes. Not Will Howard, but some other guys could make some splashes. I'm sure we'll spend a lot of time talking about Shador and Cam Ward. The most famous guest in show history, TBD, will be joining us, so we will let you know who TBD officially is soon enough, but we'll have a lovely guest that knows actually enough about rookie college players.
Yeah, come discover the rookies with Joe and myself.
I mean, fully. I can tell you their names. I didn't even know who Luther Burden was. That sound like I was like, oh, Luther Vandross? Like, that's what I heard when you said Luther Burden.
So here's where I got the leg up. College Football 25, the video game, came out this year. I know so many of these players rookies now, or names now, like in some of their skill sets. Thank you, video games.
I learned these names from doing 16 Bleacher Report videos on the NFC talking about who the team should draft. So I only know this from, literally hours of editing these videos from these people. I'm like, I don't fucking know who half these guys are, but they're here.
Well, I want to give a shout out. Our boy John Lobb was our wide receiver episode last year, and he mentioned Tet McMillan to end that show. And now this guy's looked at as the #1 rookie wide receiver. So good knowledge drops on these episodes. So come back for the quarterbacks next week.
And we'll have it with TBD. For myself, Ryan, Josh, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL, clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy. We will see you next week. Oh, did I not? I didn't hit end stream.
We're still
I didn't. Wow. That's